This week, the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana will table the 2026 national budget at a time when the fiscal picture appears more stable than it was a year ago, but global uncertainty remains elevated. Stronger commodity prices, improved tax collections, and early gains in energy and logistics reform have helped steady the ship somewhat. But with geopolitical tensions, U.S. tariff pressures, and uncertainty around the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, still in play, the big question is whether this will be a hold-the-line budget or one that signals a shift in tax and revenue strategy. Let's speak to Graham Molyneux, who is tax partner at Forvis Mazars. Good afternoon, and thank you for your time. Please paint the picture for us as far as tax and revenue is concerned. What does, if we are using the analogy of that briefcase that chancellors of the exchequer, finance ministers, tend to carry in Commonwealth countries, ex-Commonwealth countries. What's in the briefcase as far as revenue and tax collections are concerned?
I think the briefcase is relatively full, looking back over our shoulder for the past 12 months. It's been a good year from a tax collection perspective, particularly around personal income taxes. SARS have been particularly aggressive in enforcing the collection of taxes due. We've seen, high-profile audits of individuals and quite a strong emphasis on high net worth individuals coming to play there. So personal income tax has been strong. VAT collections have been strong. Even corporate collections have been strong because of the success of the minerals sector over the past 12 months. With the gold price, etc., soaring. So I think from that perspective, it paints a very rosy picture. I think that needs to be countered to some degree with the fact that the real economy is only growing at about 1%, and unemployment is very high, corruption is still high. So we mustn't fall into the trap of thinking everything is hunky-dory and will be going forward. So I think from a tax perspective, we're not going to see too many tax increases. In fact, be surprised if anything increases other than the usual sin taxes, fuel levies, and the like. I think where they will, as they often do, will make some inroads will be on holding the tax brackets firm. In other words, not allowing for inflationary adjustments to tax brackets, which always manages to gain a bit more extra revenue into the personal income tax coffers. So I think that will almost certainly come into play. It'll be interesting to see whether maybe some relief is given at the lower end of the tax table for the less affluent. But those are the only things we really expect. I think enforcement of tax will again be a very, very big theme in this year ahead, along with sort of automation.
Yeah. So just because last year it was such a big talking point, and clearly it's not this year, what about value-added tax? No, it would be a bolt out of the blue if anything moved with regard to VAT, right?
Correct. We'd be very surprised if that was put back on the table this year. I mean, we had, I think, 2 aborted attempts at a budget last year because there wasn't alignment within the Government of National Unity around the VAT point. It was a very sticky point. Obviously, it's a very contentious issue to raise the VAT rate because it impacts everybody, particularly the poor. So last year, if you recall, there was a suggestion of raising VAT in incremental stages at sort of 0.5% one year and half a percent the next. I don't think they'll go anywhere near VAT this year, given what happened last year and given it's an important political year as well. So perhaps some fiddling around the fringes on maybe the expansion of the list of zero-rated items is a possibility, but I don't think we're going to see a VAT increase now.
Sure. So let's then talk about what the implications of the improved collection are for such things as expenditure, but also importantly issues such as consolidating the budget deficit. Where do you think this will land us?
Well, I think, the fact that SARS can't, or Treasury can't really at this point seek to increase the government coffers through raising taxes or implementing new taxes, they've got to be particularly strong at collecting what they've already got. And I think one has to bear in mind that, particularly when you're looking at the individual tax base, it's very, very small. I think you have at last count about 1/3 of the tax being collected from a very small percentage of taxpayers that are in the top tax bracket, for example. So SARS really have to enforce in a really meaningful way. And so that means they need to be efficient as well. So I think to create the efficiency, we're seeing a lot of modernization happening in the way that they're collecting tax. They're using data, they're using analytics, AI, and these sorts of things to actually be a lot more efficient and to collect taxes and identify risks in real time, not waiting for taxpayers to sort of submit returns. So I think they need to, do their bit to collect what is due, to make sure there's enough income on the balance sheet, and that will then obviously seek to fund the OPEX and the CAPEX that government wants to spend. We really are in need of a lot of infrastructure. It's been good to see a bit of turnaround in the ports and with Eskom in the past 12 months, but we need a lot more.
Yeah.
We are running a primary surplus at the moment, meaning that there's enough tax coming in to offset the operational expenditure that government's incurring, but obviously that's before the hefty interest bill we have on the very large debt number that we're carrying. So it's a very difficult balance for the finance minister this coming Wednesday.
And Graham, if I heard you correctly, you expect there to be no adjustment for inflation as far as the tax brackets are concerned, the so-called bracket creep. That's not uncontroversial, is it?
I think of it as a sort of a stealth tax, because while there's no actual tax increase, so people sort of are happy about tax rates not going up, the fact is if you're being paid even just on an inflationary adjustment basis, the chances are you're going to sneak into that next tax bracket. And that's where a lot more tax then gets collected. So, the fact that they've done it over so many years consistently, I think people have that sort of baked into their thought process now. They're kind of half expecting it, so it wouldn't be a massive surprise. But it is, if you like, a little bit of a sneaky tax increase. And as I said earlier, there may be a bit of relief given at the lower ends of the tax bands, where they may adjust the brackets for those that are earning a little bit less but are still paying tax. But I think at the top end, I suspect they'll definitely be imposing the bracket creep.
And if, Graham, if part of our story is informed by the commodity, call it commodity boom, I don't know if we can call it that, but certainly strong performance as far as certain of our commodities, your PGM group, minerals, your gold is concerned. Those are notoriously cyclical, aren't they? How does SARS balance between those cyclical, for lack of a better word, cycles versus strengthening its own collection mechanisms and effectiveness beyond just the, what gives them a boost here and there, such as the commodity cycles?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I mean, they are definitely cyclical. And I think we've already seen, I'm no economist, but we've already seen a bit of a cooling off in the gold price since 2025. So, these things are a boon for SARS when they happen. I think they come almost as a little bit of an unexpected bonus, but they'd be taking a huge risk if they just relied on these booms and bust sort of cycles. I think, if you look at what I always like to do is look at, for example, the major retailers and say, well, they're more of a stable test, if you will, of where the economy's at. And, I think as a whole, the retail sector is struggling a little bit more because of the, that very low growth rate of 1%. So, SARS has to look at that and say, well, maybe there's a little bit less coming in on the retail side, while there might be a boon on the gold side, that's not going to last forever. So they have to build a much more sustainable policy around, when they look at these things, it's over a number of years. It wouldn't just be for next year. Enforcement and structural policy is vitally important to that.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this afternoon. That's Graham Molyneux, who is tax partner at Forvis Mazars. You're watching The Week Ahead here on SABC News. I'll be back with more of the stories that will shape the week ahead in just a moment.